Well, all week, we've been telling you about the Rolling Jubilee, the initiative organized by members of Occupy Wall Street to raise money and put it towards buying up people's debt. Many are calling it the people's bailout, and so far, they have raised more than $200,000. Now, this evening, the group will hold a huge fundraiser, a telethon, to try to raise much more money to help as many people as possible. RT correspondent Anastasia Churkina has been covering this all week. She joins me from our studios in New York. I've also got here RT producer Adriana Ucero with me in studio. Anastasia, let me start with you. What is expected at tonight's telethon?
Hey guys, so finally the day is here, the telethon starts, and of course even days leading up to this, enormous amounts of money have already been raised. And what we're expecting tonight is really, even though the cause is really serious and the debt that they're trying to tackle, this is going to be a really fun event. It's a variety show with lots of different bands and comedians. It starts at 8 p.m. Eastern and goes on for 3 hours. And of course during this time, people will be calling in, making donations. They will still continue to make donations online. And even at the beginning of this week, tickets at $25 a pop were already completely sold out. And it's interesting that at this event, every ticket is abolishes as much as $500 worth of debt. So for those people who are there, they've already contributed. For those who missed out, there will be a viewing party several minutes away downtown Manhattan where people will join to watch the live stream of the telethon. And our crews were down there earlier today to check out the preparations and talk to some organizers. Take a listen again to the mission of what this Rolling Jubilee is all about.
Well, what we're really trying to do is build a global debt resistors movement. And so what this project is really useful is shining a spotlight on different aspects of the way in which debt is used to bind the 99%. Shine a spotlight on different injustices and to hopefully help mobilize that kind of debt resistors movement that we need to actually create this massive, nonviolent, non-cooperation with Wall Street.
And you know, in juxtaposition really to what has been going on Wall Street, it's interesting that the Occupy Wall Street movement with this strike debt project is being completely transparent. They're promising to show all of the donations online, as they have been doing these last several days, as well as all the final sums of money that they gather, and also promise to show exactly how they distribute it. And of course, unlike the debt collectors hounding people on the market, none of the occupiers are actually making a profit off of this whole event.
Well, let's talk about the Occupy angle in this. Even Forbes, Adriana, the financial publication, they wrote an article praising this method. They said that the headline of the article was "Finally, an Occupy Wall Street idea we can all get behind: the Rolling Jubilee." Even calling this idea more conservative than anything else. Talk about the long-term impact of this.
I mean, it's very interesting because, I mean, you know, Occupy has had sort of an interesting inception and sort of an interesting end goal, which is a lot of people didn't know what it was. A lot of different voices came together, and sometimes it was a mismatch, you know, and people really didn't know what to make of it for a very long time. And now we're seeing sort of, you know, truth to power. You're seeing sort of things sort of coming and going, and you're seeing actual change. You're seeing change enacted. So I think it's very interesting what we heard from one of the organizers right now, like the idea to shine a spotlight to injustices and to have sort of now the steam behind this social movement. I mean, it's very interesting. This is sort of how you get things done really at the grassroots level. So this can be just another example of maybe the grassroots coming together. So it's something that we should all keep an eye on.
So interesting because this has been in the works for quite a while, but we did see a couple weeks ago in the aftermath of Superstorm Sandy, the Occupy movement really come together and take the lead, organizing help for people that needed it, even working with FEMA. Some people saying even being there when FEMA isn't. So really, after a year of a lot of messages and discussions, some action that we're seeing play out before our very eyes. Anastasia, let me go to you. I know that there has been some mentions of a pleasant surprise at this point, before the telethon even begins, that so much money has been raised. Is this just from people logging on and pledging money? What's going on here?
Yeah, Christine, you know, guys, it's been absolutely shocking how much money Occupy has been able to gather already in the days leading up to this movement. Last time I checked a couple of minutes ago, they've already gathered over $200,000, and that's enough to abolish over $4 million in debt. And we have to keep in mind, when this project, they just started talking about it, Occupy was saying our goal, our really fantasy goal, is gathering $50,000 to abolish $1 million worth of debt. So right now, they've already got 4 times more than that. And the telethon, the main event, the main fundraiser, has not even started yet. And it's just been fascinating to see what a big difference tiny donations have been making there, because, you know, $10 abolishes as much as $200, $20, $400, $100, $2,000. So it's just really been fascinating to see how quickly that money has been donated and gathered by on their website in particular, and later today on the telethon. And, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if we see after this fundraiser tonight them gather, you know, maybe enough to abolish $500 billion.
Anastasia, forgive me.
Really quickly.
Forgive me if you've already answered this earlier in the week. I know you've been reporting on this story a lot, but how are they going to choose whose debt gets abolished? How are they going to decide, you know, who to target for this?
Sure. Well, you know, that's one of the kind of most frequently asked questions we've been getting from our viewers, particularly because people are like, hey, we want to find out. I have all this debt. I don't know how to get rid of it. What should I do? And the trick here is that Occupy is doing this kind of in a secret distribution. There's really no way for them to donate to any particular person. So, you know, you can't have an occupier, for example, abolish a debt for a friend or a family member. Because of the way the system works, the distressed debt is really sold in bulk, and they get very little information about which people in particular they're going to be the distressed debt for. Those people will end up getting the calls, and they only find out that they're the ones whose debt was abolished when they get a call from Occupy saying, you know, you're one of the lucky few. But, you know, if we talk a little bit more about what to expect next in terms of Occupy, because this is seen as a really an important first step, take a listen to how the organizers of this strike debt movement explain to us what is happening with this movement next and why this is a good beginning.
You know, last year, going to the street, occupying our public spaces, exercising our First Amendment right to peacefully assemble was in and of itself an act of resistance. Now, they suspended our First Amendment right with the eviction, which happened last year today. So I think what we're doing now is analyzing all of the different ways in which Wall Street is occupying our lives, and debt is that main intersection between our lives and Wall Street. So we're trying to figure out how to push back. So last year they evicted us. This year we're going to build a movement to help evict Wall Street.
Well, guys, so, you know, this strike debt is one of the latest, like you mentioned, hurricane relief efforts, you know, the big crowds that this organizer just talked about to us. These are all stages that Occupy has been through. And with this particular latest fundraiser, what they're hoping is this might set a beginning for a bigger project. And hopefully, if we see them gather enough money to really make some kind of a difference in the, you know, incredibly indebted country here, we might see this project continue, hopefully, and then maybe other similar ones like this rise out. So we'll see what happens.
And I do want to relate what's going on here back to Washington and back to some of the policies made here in Washington and talk about somebody that we haven't talked about in a while, and that is Congressman Ron Paul, a former presidential candidate. He made his sort of farewell speech yesterday on the floor of the House, a 48-minute speech, kind of echoing many of the sentiments and principles that he has really adhered to over the years. And one of those was about debt. So I want to play really quick what he said. Take a listen.
Deficits rise to the sky, poverty is rampant, and dependency on the federal government is now worse than any time in our history. Most of our wealth today depends on debt.
Now, Adriana, I don't want to focus on the economics so much as the politics and the policy here. Why has this, you know, buy now, pay later attitude become so accepted in Washington, despite the warnings of, you know, long-term experienced congressmen like Congressman Paul?
See, I think that's sort of a misnomer. I feel that, you know, this entire idea that, you know, it's this entire crisis that we're in now was just because there were a couple of people that were trying to live outside their means. I mean, there is truth to that, obviously. We didn't get here because, you know, we were being prudent. But however, it's a two-way street.
Not just people, but the government as well.
But the government as well. So it's sort of interesting because we're in this crisis because there were also banks that were not adhering to those sets and standards as well. So instead of being punished for those, what happened was essentially, you know, they got bailed out. So I think it's a little bit of a misnomer to say that things are so simple, it's so black and white.
All right. RT producer Adriana Ucero, and in New York, RT correspondent Anastasia Churkina. Thanks, guys.